Sliver wasn't just another glossy 90s erotic thriller. It was a battleground of clashing egos, chaotic reshoots, and a studio desperately chasing the shadow of Basic Instinct. What audiences saw was steamy voyeurism and a seductive Sharon Stone performance. But what really unfolded behind the lens was brutal production turmoil, bitter disputes, and choices that nearly killed the movie before it ever reached theaters. Today, we're pulling back the blinds and revealing 20 weird facts about Sliver. From casting scandals to shredded endings, from bizarre studio interference to Sharon Stone's own frustrations, you'll see this film in a whole new light. And just wait for the bonus fact, it might be the single strangest secret buried in Sliver's history. Let's begin. Number 1. Sharon Stone didn't want this role. Sharon Stone had just rocketed to superstardom with Basic Instinct, 1992. Audiences saw her as Hollywood's new femme fatale, but she was cautious. When Sliver landed on her desk, Stone initially rejected it, wary of being typecast in another voyeuristic thriller. But Paramount offered her a record $2.5 million paycheck, a staggering figure for the time. What audiences didn't know was that Stone signed reluctantly. She feared the script was weak and the project unstable. Insiders say she often argued with producers about dialogue and tone, trying to salvage credibility. It wasn't the bold power move it looked like. It was survival in a system that wanted to pigeonhole her. In Stone's own words, "I didn't want to be the naked girl forever." Number 2. Alec Baldwin walked away in anger. Originally, Alec Baldwin was cast as Zeke, the voyeuristic building owner. But the script's lurid tone and repeated rewrites drove him away. Baldwin reportedly clashed with director Philip Noyce, demanding rewrites that softened his character. When the studio resisted, Baldwin walked, leaving the production in chaos. Enter William Baldwin, his younger brother, who suddenly had the chance to step into Alec's shoes. But this casting swap wasn't smooth. Sharon Stone later complained about William's lack of chemistry, calling their love scenes torture. The tension was so bad that tabloids ran stories suggesting Sharon slapped Baldwin on set. Whether exaggerated or not, the swap turned a potential A-list pairing into one of Hollywood's most awkward mismatches. Number 3. Philip Noyce. Nearly quit director. Philip Noyce wasn't a natural fit for erotic thrillers. Known for political dramas and taut action, he was hired after a long search. But almost immediately, the project spiraled. Paramount executives demanded more nudity, more violence, and more edge. Noyce pushed back, saying the story was being gutted for shock value. At one point, he allegedly told a colleague, "This isn't filmmaking. It's just surveillance of actors' bodies." Studio notes piled up daily. Endless test screenings shredded his confidence. By the time reshoots started, Noyce privately considered quitting. He didn't, but what ended up on screen bore little resemblance to his original vision. Sliver wasn't the film he set out to make. It was the film the studio demanded. Number 4. Sharon Stone hated her co-star. On screen, Stone and William Baldwin share sweaty, breathless intimacy. Off-screen, they barely tolerated each other. Reports circulated that Stone found Baldwin immature and unprofessional. One infamous rumor claimed she bit his tongue during a kissing scene, hard enough to leave him bleeding, because she was fed up with him. Baldwin reportedly called her impossible. Stone later admitted she had to act her way through the love scenes because the chemistry was non-existent. Their animosity leaked onto the set, slowing production and requiring multiple takes of simple scenes. The glossy romance audiences saw was pure illusion, built out of editing and performance rather than real connection. Number 5. The ending was completely rewritten. What audiences saw in theaters wasn't the ending Noyce originally shot. Test audiences despised the first cut, calling it confusing and unsatisfying. Paramount panicked. Entire new scenes were written, shot, and spliced in. Originally, the film leaned more toward a psychological mystery, suggesting Zeke wasn't the true villain. But after reshoots, Baldwin's character became the clear antagonist. Sharon Stone even had to loop new lines of dialogue to match the rewritten conclusion. By the time Sliver hit theaters, it was a Frankenstein's monster of different visions. The ending wasn't artistic. It was engineered in a boardroom. To this day, fans debate which version was worse. Number 6. The author of the novel hated the film. Sliver was based on a novel by Ira Levin, the same writer behind Rosemary's Baby and The Stepford Wives. His books had previously inspired chilling, iconic films. But Levin was appalled by what Paramount did to his story. The novel leaned into paranoia, mystery, and subtle dread. The film gutted that nuance for steamy voyeurism and glossy surfaces. Levin reportedly distanced himself, refusing interviews about the adaptation. In private circles, he admitted the movie made his work look cheap. What audiences didn't know was that Sliver destroyed a chance at another faithful Levine adaptation. Instead of being remembered alongside Rosemary's Baby, it became a cautionary tale of how Hollywood can take literary suspense and strip it for skin-deep thrills. Number 7. Censors. Nearly blocked its release, Paramount was aiming for an R rating, but the MPAA didn't make it easy. The first cut came back with an NC-17, thanks to graphic scenes between Stone and Baldwin. Studio executives panicked. NC-17 was a box office death sentence in the 1990s. Multiple edits were rushed through, trimming seconds of thrusting, moaning, and nudity. Director Philip Noyce was furious, saying the ER film was being chopped to pieces. But Paramount prioritized profit. The official theatrical cut was a heavily compromised version, neutered to please the MPAA. What audiences didn't know. Even after all the cuts, Paramount had to threaten legal action just to secure the R. Sliver survived censorship, but the price was its integrity. Number 8. The music video outshone the film. When Sliver hit theaters, critics ripped it apart. But one thing stood out: the theme song. UB40's Can't Help Falling in Love, featured prominently in the film, became a massive hit. The music video, which spliced in scenes from the movie, gained more attention than the film itself. MTV played it on heavy rotation, giving Sliver free publicity. Ironically, many fans who bought the soundtrack never bothered to see the movie. Sharon Stone herself later joked that the music video was better than the film. In a bizarre twist, a love ballad became Sliver's real legacy. It wasn't the movie that lingered in pop culture. It was the soundtrack that outlasted it. Number 9. Paramount thought it would be the next Basic Instinct. After Basic Instinct shattered box office records, Paramount wanted lightning to strike twice. Sliver was rushed into production with Sharon Stone front and center. Executives marketed it as the next big erotic thriller. Posters emphasized her body, not the plot. Ads whispered about forbidden pleasure and secret surveillance. The hype was enormous. But when the movie premiered, it fizzled. Critics mocked it, audiences shrugged, and box office numbers tanked. Paramount spent millions chasing an echo of Basic Instinct, but what they got was a pale imitation. What audiences didn't realize at the time: Sliver marked the beginning of the end of the erotic thriller craze. It wasn't just a flop. It was the first crack in a genre Hollywood had overexploited. Number 10. Sharon Stone tried to distance herself from the film. When Sliver premiered, Stone knew it was a mess. She skipped some promotional appearances and dodged press questions about the film's content. Insiders said she privately called it garbage. The studio, furious, leaned on her contractual obligations to force her into doing limited press. By the time critics shredded it, Stone had already begun distancing herself. She pivoted to roles in more dramatic films, desperate not to be defined by another erotic thriller. What audiences didn't know? Stone wasn't just embarrassed. She was scared. Scared that Sliver would undo everything she'd built after Basic Instinct. Number 11. Sharon Stone rewrote her own dialogue. Sharon Stone wasn't just unhappy with her co-star, she was furious with the script. On set, she often argued that the dialogue sounded flat, mechanical, and even laughable. Rather than risk humiliation, Stone began rewriting her own lines between takes. Crew members recalled her scribbling changes on call sheets and whispering alternative phrasing to the director before cameras rolled. What audiences didn't know was that much of Stone's performance wasn't scripted. It was improvised survival. She tried to add layers of vulnerability to Carly Norris, her character, who otherwise read like a blank slate. Stone's changes weren't always accepted, but without them, the movie might have felt even emptier. It wasn't rebellion. It was desperation. Number 12. The building became a character of its own. The Sliver apartment building wasn't just a backdrop. It was central to the film's voyeuristic theme. But filming in real New York skyscrapers proved nearly impossible. Permits, costs, and constant interruptions ruined the plan. So production designed massive interior sets in Los Angeles, recreating the luxury apartments and hallways with eerie precision. These sets were fitted with dozens of working surveillance cameras, giving actors the unsettling feeling of always being watched. Sharon Stone reportedly hated the feeling of walking onto a real apartment that was crawling with hidden lenses. What audiences didn't realize was that the paranoia Stone displayed on screen wasn't entirely acting. She was living it every day on set. Number 13. Multiple actors refused to take the role of Zeke. Before William Baldwin landed the role, Hollywood cycled through a carousel of possibilities. Alec Baldwin walked first, but he wasn't alone. Kevin Costner, Tom Cruise, and even Jack Nicholson were floated as potential Zekes. Most declined immediately, citing the weak script. Paramount grew desperate, offering inflated paychecks to secure a star. But the combination of voyeurism, sleazy undertones, and shallow writing scared actors away. William Baldwin was chosen less out of confidence and more out of necessity. What audiences didn't know was that Zeke was supposed to be magnetic, mysterious, and darkly irresistible. Instead, it felt like a role everyone else refused. And it showed. Number 14. Test screenings nearly doomed the film entirely. The first test screenings of Sliver were disastrous. Audiences laughed during tense scenes, groaned at the love story, and ranked the ending one of the worst they'd ever seen. Paramount executives left the theater humiliated. They considered shelving the film entirely, or dumping it quietly on cable. But Sharon Stone's name was too valuable, and they'd already spent $40 million. So they doubled down on reshoots, rewrites, and marketing. What audiences didn't know was that Sliver almost never saw a wide release. It survived not because it was strong, but because the studio refused to admit failure. Its theatrical run was less a release than a salvage operation. Number 15. Sharon Stone and Philip Noyce stopped speaking. By the end of production, the working relationship between Sharon Stone and director Philip Noyce had collapsed. Stone accused him of bending too easily to studio demands. Noyce, in turn, complained that Stone undermined him by rewriting dialogue and challenging his authority. Their on-set tension became so severe that they communicated through assistants rather than face-to-face. One crew member later described the atmosphere as toxic, cold, and joyless. What audiences didn't realize, by the time cameras wrapped, Sliver wasn't a collaborative film anymore. It was a battlefield, with Stone and Noyce fighting for different visions, neither of which ended up on screen. Number 16. The voyeurism wasn't just fiction. On set, the surveillance theme bled into real life. Those dozens of cameras built into the Sliver apartment sets didn't always stop rolling. Crew members later admitted they sometimes reviewed rehearsal tapes in ways that blurred the line between work and voyeurism. Sharon Stone reportedly demanded certain tapes be destroyed after realizing how much footage existed of her between takes. What audiences didn't know: Sliver's obsession with surveillance wasn't just narrative, it infected the production. The actors felt watched even when they weren't on. For Stone, who had already been exposed in Basic Instinct, the sense of being constantly observed was brutal. Not just a performance, it was a personal invasion. Number 17. The film sparked protests. In 1993, the erotic thriller craze was already under fire. Religious groups and feminist organizations saw Sliver as exploitation disguised as art. Outside certain theaters, protesters held signs condemning the film's depiction of women as objects of voyeurism. Critics piled on, calling it a plot. Paramount tried to spin the backlash as free publicity, but it only deepened the film's reputation as trashy. What audiences didn't know: the protests were so heated in some cities that police had to escort patrons into theaters. Sliver wasn't just entertainment. It was a cultural lightning rod, proof that the erotic thriller wave had gone too far. Number 18. Sharon Stone's career almost collapsed afterward. Stone had carefully positioned herself as Hollywood's most magnetic star after Basic Instinct. But Sliver threatened to derail everything. Critics accused her of cashing in rather than acting. The lack of chemistry with Baldwin further damaged her screen image. For a time, Stone was mocked as a one-hit wonder who couldn't carry a film without Paul Verhoeven's guiding hand. She scrambled to choose roles that distanced her from erotic thrillers, eventually redeeming herself with Casino, 1995, which won her an Oscar nomination. What audiences didn't realize. Had Casino not arrived, Sliver might have ended Stone's reign entirely. It wasn't just a flop. It was nearly a career-ending blow. Number 19. International audiences saved the film. In America, Sliver bombed. But overseas, the story was different. European and Asian audiences embraced the voyeuristic themes, pushing the film's worldwide gross past $100 million. Paramount breathed a sigh of relief, but the irony was bitter. The very movie American critics shredded as garbage became a global moneymaker. Sharon Stone's star power carried it across borders, proving her appeal wasn't limited to Hollywood hype. What audiences didn't know. Without foreign box office, Sliver would have been an unmitigated disaster. Instead, it was rebranded as a global hit, even though the home audience had rejected it outright. Number 20. The deleted scenes could fill another movie. Dozens of scenes never made it into the theatrical cut. Alternate endings, extended sequences, and darker explorations of Zeke's psychology were all shot, then abandoned. Philip Noyce once admitted, "There's another version of this film no one will ever see." Fans speculate about a director's cut, but Paramount has buried the footage deep in its archives. What audiences didn't know. The deleted material painted a completely different story. Less about sleaze, more about paranoia and control. Instead of clarity, Paramount chose chaos. To this day, Sliver remains a movie defined not by what's on screen, but by what was lost in the editing room. Bonus fact: the film's surveillance scenes inspired real crimes. The most chilling legacy of Sliver isn't cinematic. It's real world. In the mid-1990s, several stalkers caught by police admitted they'd been inspired by the movie's voyeuristic premise. One case in particular in New York involved a man who set up hidden cameras in apartment buildings, citing Sliver as his blueprint. The film's fantasy of total surveillance became disturbingly a reality. What audiences didn't know. Hollywood's experiment in erotic paranoia accidentally spilled into life, echoing the very dangers the story pretended to dramatize. In the end, Sliver didn't just watch. It was watched, studied, and imitated in terrifying ways. Sliver was never the sleek thriller Paramount promised. It was chaos dressed as cinema, fueled by feuds, censorship, rewrites, and studio panic. What audiences saw was glossy shadows. What really happened was a war of vision, a film gutted and rebuilt until nothing coherent remained. Yet even in failure, it left behind a legacy, a warning about Hollywood excess, and the thin line between voyeurism on screen and obsession in real life. So next time you hear "I like to watch," remember, Sliver wasn't just a movie, it was a meltdown, preserved on celluloid.